Thank you so much, Sam. And I think Adam sends his apologies for not being with us today, but he stressed that I should show you in detail how you as researchers could access the LANS data. So I'm going to share my screen and then start. The plan for today that I will try is I will introduce the context, I will introduce the subject, and then tell you a little bit more about the content and tool architecture of the lens and how the data is shared and how you can access it in more detail. But first, as well, there is this hypothesis that many of us look at it and think about it and maybe want to test it, that equitable societies actually depend on an inclusive and participatory innovation system. And when you start thinking about the type of research that matter in the innovation workflow, you start thinking about maybe we're going to focus on the science itself because the science matters quite a bit, but then you find out it's not the whole story, or you examine the patent and as well the patents are important and help, but patent cover only a subset of the inventions that are available out there. Then you say, oh, if we improve the quality of the data, then we would be able to make understand the story. But if the data is not verified or shared widely, it will be in limited value. Similarly to access and availability issues or public policies that they need to be implemented in order for them to not be constraining but opening. So whether the context and network matter, but does it get us to where we want at the finish line? And if not, so what does? So if we look at the latest of what economists have been doing and the work of Raj Chetty from Harvard, what he has been doing is that he has been exploring that traffic on the bridges between the knowledge corpora. And for example, he's saying that if we look at women inventors and understand the gender issues, then we would be able to increase, if we put women back and minorities back into the innovation space, we will quadruple the innovation in the US. And similarly, he looked at patent traits versus third grade math test scores. And he showed that, you know, there is a big differences if the parent income are above the 80th percentile versus lower in terms of the children's ability to become inventors. That's one aspect of how one could look to move societies into a different equitable place. And if we look at another economist like Mariana Mazzuccato, she has seen through the trends from 2008 to 2017, looking at companies, 500 companies, that there is a trend has decreased in terms of the reinvestment into the economy. Industry are spending more money into paying dividends rather than investing back into the economy. So this creates a problem. And if I looked at the MIT Technology Insight in June 2020, the industry is looking for more effective partnerships and collaboration. And so where does it leave and how can we mobilize public sector to become as effective in this term? So what have we done, as what's the lens vision, if you will, is that we have looked at the different knowledge corpora, and for anyone to innovate, and as we all know, that we need many elements to come together in order to produce product or a service. So all these knowledge silos that are available, they need to be bridged. And also we need to understand that bridge and develop tools for them. So for the lens, these different knowledge corpora need to be connected and become public knowledge and shared under this FAIR principle. And the FAIR principle means that they have to be findable, they have to be accessible, interoperable, reusable, and enabling. And enabling means that we would be able to just move and understand how we can engage into the innovation system at a larger scale. And so just to give you a little bit of background, I pulled this old lens history to show you that when we started in around 2001 with 60,000 biotech patent records. And we bought them from United States, USPTO, and we made them tax searchable in order to start. So the lens has been in operation for the last more than 20 years under different names, the Cambia IP resource, as well as later patent lens, and now become the lens. So we've been working on this for a long time. So what do we have now, right now? Because that's what's important, I think, for most of you in order to be able to access the data. We have two corpora of knowledge, and I'll focus on these two because the science and the patent. The lens scholarly data, we have 230 million plus, because we update right now on bi-weekly, but we're coming to weekly basis. And we have the patent data, and we have them aligned into their architecture. So the scholarly work comes from three major public sources, and we added the core. So we have the Microsoft Crossref, PubMed, and core data, and we show you the percentage and the overlap between these data sources. These are open, public. Anyone could download PubMed, anyone could download MAG data. And we have the patents as well, 130 million plus from 105 jurisdictions. And I highlighted just the major jurisdictions and their content. What do? We combine these two, parse, merge, and link the contextual content by record, by human, and by organization. And what we are developing is a taxonomy, if you will, of the functional relationships between the different entities. And what we are using as an aggregator and a catalog tool is the Lens ID. And Lens ID is a global open persistent identifier that we are using it for two purposes, is to aggregate and to represent all the variants, all the information, the knowledge that we know about it. So let's zoom in a little bit, just so you have a better idea about the aligned architecture of the patent as well as the scholarly work and how these merge together and link at various with various elements. Okay, so we are looking right now at this patent meta record, a new one that we just finished constructing. We combine the DocDB publication records with it has bibliographic information from 100 or more than 100 jurisdictions with the Patent Office full text data that we acquired, and we merge them using the publication identifiers, as well as the DocDB has a standardized EPO names for applicants, and the patent offices have the original entity names. Once they are merged and harmonized, we use the benchmark of the DuckDB in order to standardize the names, okay? And then we attach the lens ID to each record as well to aggregate that information. And we start adding the supplementary information, whether the USPTO assignment data, whether it is the legal status from IMPADOC and the ownership legal events as well into the meta record. So each patent record will have all these contextual information around it. At the same time as well, the patent, we have the raw non-patent citation strings. We feed them into the scholarly meta record, and I'll show you, I zoom from the scholarly lens meta record. I have enlarged that box so you could see how we do it and how we feed back the resolved citation. So not only we have the raw NPL citation strings feeding into, but later we add backward, forward citations into this and any other additional element. For example, if the examiners or the applicant had added, it was cited phase, the cited category, because as you know, with NPL citations in the front page of the patent, they have a value, a legal value from being there. So we have lots of additional elements that are important for economists or researchers to look at or to investigate. And so we add that information incrementally. Okay, so from the scholarly meta record, if we zoom in into, so you could enlarge that box to understand a little bit how it's done. We have the three major public data sources, MAG, PubMed, Crossref. We give each record a lens ID and converge here in this box. And then we put them back into the NPL citation resolver that we use right now, Crossref and PubMed resolver, and we are working on MAG resolver as well because they have it. And we will be, once the NPLs have been resolved as a citation and we have the other scholarly data comes, they go into a what we call them, a modeler, a quality control check algorithms that is based on a rule and clustering algorithms, and all the logging history is maintained so that we can maintain some transparency. And remember, because this is a dynamic and flexible system, that means with every iteration, with every data update, whether from us or from the public resources, then this data always is shuffled and realigned in order to get more perfected and clarified. And so if there is a conflict, we maintain separate records so that we would be able to, you will be able as a user to see that. And then we interject as well additional supplementary data from various sources as we see them. Okay.
Osmat, before you move on,
yeah.
There is a question about the full text coverage.
Okay, the full text coverage, we have full text from EPO, from USPTO, from WIPO, and from Australia.
And how far back do they go?
So they go back to, we provide all that data in the structure page. If you go into the structure search page in the lens, and I'll show you where you can find that information and the details of it, about it. Okay, so for application, because it all depends. If for applications from 2001 forward, for grants from 1976 forward. So for each jurisdictions, we have a certain set of dates, and then you will be able to see it. Everything is transparent into the website, and we can show you where it is. Okay. Thank you, Sam. Okay, so what do we do with that information after we generate it? First, we share it with the public data providers, okay? So we have a bi-weekly sharing of the NPLs, or the non-patent citation, with PubMed that are resolved by PubMed IDs. And then we have a monthly patent data sharing with Microsoft Academic, because we share with them even the raw as well as resolved early on the non-patent citation, but they have developed their own resolver. So now we share only the raw data. We have shared the resolved DOI with Crossref, and but I don't think they have yet made it available to publicly. We have also had discussions with the patent offices who were interested in having that pipeline accessible to them, but we have not implemented yet this. We are progressing in the discussions with them. All right, now this is what we share with the public data resources. How about on the Lens platform itself? As a user, when you register, and even if you don't register, you have a limited access and you can download data. But as a user, registered user, you can access to all that information freely on the Lens. You have a patent search, or you can search for any information you want, or a scholarly search. You can search for the linked information using the PetSite tool, wherein you can input, if you want to know all your department, all your own work, all your institutions' resolved IDs, if they have been cited in the patent literature, or if you have a patent portfolio and you want to know what is the collection of citation in them, you can use the app, the tool. So we have tools and we have the data accessible in the Lens itself, in the Lens product stack. So we have the patent, scholarly, PetSite, and Inform, where we have 250 institutions portfolio. But because we, at that start, when we started in the Inform that's available right now on site, we have the patent, the citing patent data available, but not the scholarly itself. You'll have to look at it in the search of the scholarly and be able to download your institution work. And in order to enlarge that, we, through the I3 and the collaboration with the MIT Knowledge Future Group, we have started to think about how can we improve on the data sharing and making it a more open collaboration, and through the availability of a data facility that help move things forward a little bit faster and share the tools as well as the data with people. And for that is the Lens Lab come into a place, it's a community hub where people could share the data, experiment with the data, and be able to provide guidance on the know-how, on the enabling part of the sharing. And you will see that the Lens Lab page is different from the one in production, because there is now a new environment called the previewlens.org. And I will introduce it at the end of the talk so you could see. We just released it last night so that you will be able to experiment with it and work with it. And this is a preview before we have a full release in a few weeks, okay? So right now we wanna reach the wider community, and how do we do it? It's through open collaboration, for example, public workshops. And we hope that if you are interested in different workshops, like we are doing right now, data sharing workshop, and Sam and Agnes have discussed, let's say that there are reconciliations, or there are other like demo hands-on workshop to demo the API and the bulk data set in the Lens. So we will facilitate that. We have provided a Lens for institutions. So if you have your librarians are interested into the data as a bigger, at an institutional level, then we have made these available and through whether to access any type of data within the lens. And the newest thing that's right now going on and researchers are very interested in, there is this citation chaser, and this is a systematic review applications that Neil Headway from Stockholm in Sweden, he made that app available to everyone. And so with the Lens, in a Lens collaboration, we made the API open. And so everyone could use the API to develop and use the citation chaser. And so that's one aspect how we did the collaboration. The other thing is that WIPO does training courses on patents, and Paul Oldham and I think Irene organize that, and so we share that API with them openly so that they will be able to do. And similarly, there is a university in Australia. A head librarian wanted to track staff citations, and so he asked for different features and for different functionalities in the Lens, and he sponsored these functionalities so that they will be able, universities, to track their staff citation, and he developed a paper about it and made it available to the community as well. So that's how we do it in terms of collaboration. But for you want to now understand how you can access the data. And this is in the data facility where you would be able right now, with the release of the new patent API, you will be able to access and search 120 plus fields of the data from the patent and 60 plus field from the scholarly using the API. And not only that, through the API, data could be accessed through bulk data sets with either regular updates if you want, or without regular updates. And right now we are developing an automation wherein hopefully within a few months we will be able to have a live indexing. But for now, we are releasing every week or 2 weeks. It depends on how whether there are loading issues with the public resources. So some public resources like MAG sometimes have updates every 2 weeks, sometimes they have delayed. So we try to coordinate. From PubMed and Crossref, we receive the data daily, and we'll be able to harmonize it and make it available, though we wait every week or every 2 weeks. It depends on the schedule. So you can access the data versus API, public data sets, or customized data set. So for example, what's customized data set? So there are certain data sets that we do for reports, like we did for COVID-19. And so these data sets, whether they are patent or scholarly, we make it available as well on the Lens Lab, and you'll be able to access it. Guidelines.
Osmat, Arash asks, do you include metadata fields like field of study?
Yes, we do. And I'll show you where you can find it, okay? Now, how to access the API and data. You have a stepwise guidelines how to do it, okay? So you don't need to ask anyone. You can just go to that link, and I'll show you on the link, and you have a stepwise how to apply for it, okay? You need documentations, and you need to look at search and field. So you may not need all the 120 fields. So don't accept what you need. So you can go to this link here where we have documentation on the API and look at the request button on this, and you'll be able to search the fields, all the 120 or all the 60, and choose the ones you want, and then pull them out, make a data set if you want, type it as a version, because I know, like Heidi said, or Bronwyn was said, maybe people do not want the API, or they want just bulk data sets with a version. So you can extract, if you want for the community, you can extract it by the API, give it a version date. The date will be your version, and then you'll be able to also post it or host it on the Lens Lab so that everybody can access that data, if you will. Like what Bhavin have done in 2011, even when he pulled the citation data from USPTO, he made it available on the Harvard database network and made it by date. This is what he did. This is what description. So you could have a description on it and attach it, and the Lens Lab will host it because it's from the Lens on the cloud, and you will be able to access it. What are the terms? We have some terms. You have to attribute it as a researcher. If you are doing it for only research purposes, you have to attribute, and you have to use enabled by the Lens. Okay, so that's it. So that we will be able to search and track this, because because of our privacy issues, we don't track or keep track of the logs or do anything. So you will have to attribute that to enabled by the Lens. And then in order for the data to be interoperable with others, you have to retain the Lens ID in redistribution. If you want other IDs like MAC, Core, PubMed ID, it's all provided. It's all available. But in order for you to pass it on, so you'll be able to have the retain Lens ID in distribution, okay? For commercial use, if you are planning to open up, start up, to do whatever, anything, you need to contact us. And the more details about your use case, the more we understand about the volume of the API you want to use, access, the attribution plans. It will help us provide and help you. We are trying our best to make the data as accessible as possible for anyone who would like to use it, okay? And we are making, for anyone who's working on disambiguation, entity resolution, whether it is, well, when we talk about entity resolution, it goes into entity recognition, standardization, harmonization. There is quite a bit of various steps. So anyone, and I hope I'm very pleased that to see also that our patent examiners from patent offices now on the call here. And I would urge anyone who wants the data and working on disambiguation or entity resolution for the public, so that we make that as a public community, as a collective action group, they can access the whole corpus. We are making the whole corpus available for anyone who is working on public, as enriching and improving the public resource. Okay, just to summarize the contributions that you can make and that we make to the public. Lens Lab data facilities available to anyone to access in terms of the research or public effort to improve the data quality. Scholarly API, it has 60 plus field with full documentations, GitHub repository and support. We answer any questions you may have and improve on it. Patent API, 120 field plus field with full documentation, GitHub repositories and support. Bulk data set with and without regular updates for both scholarly and patent API data. We have customized and versioned a data set of broad relevance. We have a platform registered users that they can now search the Lens, get the results, create dynamic collections, and export up to 50K at a time. That means if you don't need even the API, you can just search that, filter your stuff, and just export it right away. And create and export dashboard, analytic dashboards. You can use applications like PetSite or Inform and export data sets that are all available online freely for you. If you want specific, I know through the support center, they come to us and say that we are developing this visualization tool. We're developing this that's going to be public, shareable. It's an open thing. Can we access the data? And yes, we did. We did for site space, for example. We gave them access to the whole corpus. Citation Chaser, it's an open API to know. We have also developed some training data sets to experiment with adding identifier like institutional identifier with the author affiliation. The ORCID ID and MAG ID are incorporated, but they have lots of issues. So we are trying to harmonize for the next step, I think, in the next project for us that Matt and us are working on. And I think Gaetan is involved as well. And we will have institutional toolkits for public institutions to integrate whether citation or open access or any type of information, promote their work. Okay. The last step is what we have released yesterday. And I think that is, and I'm going to exit this and I'm going to show you the new site. Okay, so this is called preview.lens.org. And that through our collaboration, I think with the I3, we have released the patent API, okay? In addition to releasing the patent API, all the new Lens architecture is now in the lens.org platform. So it has been added into the Lens so that you can, everyone can access that wealth enriched information that has not only abstract claims, but has agent, applicant addresses, legal status, legal event, examiners. So it has quite a bit. But because we have now changed quite a bit the UI, we did not want to release to production immediately. We wanted to have a preview site where you can experiment with and help us test. Because as much as we can test, we're a small group. We need you to work on it. The only thing we say is that whatever you do there, it's not saved. You know, so you cannot go back if you are a registered user and you've been using the Lens and saving your work in your work area. This will not give you, because this is just a preview site to allow you to experiment with the new data and enrich. So you can find extended family, simple family now. So there are quite a bit of in the site. So this is the place where you can explore and experiment. And this is the place as well where we have, because it's a preview site and within a few weeks, we're going to release it as the new production, we put the new polished side of the Lens Lab. So basically it's a mirror of the production, except that for the new architecture of the patent. Okay, so maybe I'll stop here and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. Maybe I said I would show you so if you just look at the structure page, you could see here, the last update of the data was April 7. And for the stats, you could look at this breakdown. But if you don't want just the breakdown, look at this. You just search. We have 130 million.8 or 131 right now. And you could just look at different jurisdiction and know exactly what we have. You can say, I want to see only those that have full text. Where would that have be? Has full text. And you could see that. You could refine it and then look at the stats on this. Anything we have is posted, and as much as we can provide transparencies, we have made the data transparent. Okay, now I'll stop. And if you have more questions, please let me know and I'm happy to answer.
Thanks, Osmat.
You're welcome.
Tania had a question earlier on about whether there are statistics on the new products covered by patents or process innovations covered by patents.
So please
Do you want to
repeat.
speak to that?
Okay. So can you repeat the question, please?
She wrote, do you have statistics on what fraction of new products are covered by patents, or what fraction of process innovations are covered?
No, I don't think we have this information.
The only data I know on that, it's all old. Mansfield asked that question, of the firms that he interviewed. And I think one of the surveys might have some information. One of the Carnegie Mellon or the Yale survey might have some information on that. But it's hard data to come by, actually. And it's not very up to date. I mean, I think that's the problem. It's, things have changed.
Yeah, no, we have not provided that data yet.
I mean, I don't know. The way Gaitan's collecting data, it won't tell you that because he's keying off the patent number.
Yeah, so we may be able to, because of the complexity of the relationship, so you have maybe 200 patents to get you one product. Because I did a technology landscape on genetic transformation, okay? And so when we looked at one method, we found that in order for that method to realize, we have 200 different patents associated with this. And so in order for us to link that information, it's just a different game, I think.
Well, and that confines it to patentable stuff anyway.
Yeah,
Tanya's question, really goes. You have to start with a different database, and that's why it's so difficult. That's why it's only survey data that generally tells you about this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Osmat, you mentioned a couple of prominent reusers that you're happy to support in building visualizations on lens data.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of visibility do you have into how people are reusing it now?
The only visibility we have, because we don't track anyone, is what they write to us. You might want to ask, for example, Neil Headway, who tracks the people who are using his citation chaser. The only visibility for us is what they write us, okay? We have now about 25, we were able to track 25 publications that they used the lens data in the past year or so. But more than that, we have to be better off at tracking the use and usability of the data, which we have not done because of our privacy issues. Is just we don't maintain. So the only thing is, we are happy right now. It's a new thing as well, supporting these use case based applications and opening the API. Remember, the API is just been released December 2020. So we're talking about just the recent thing. And so we are, so far, it's just we've been swamped by all the requests and the interest, and we're delighted. And we want to make it as open as possible for people. So as I said, anyone who has we're happy to host these open communication apps on our site, on the Lens Lab or on the lens.org.
It strikes me you have two ways to track use, but they both take a while. Mm-hmm. I mean, one is the obvious one, which is your database will give you citations ultimately. Presumably, if people are citing Lens, and you've asked them to cite it, right? then ultimately your database ought to supply you with the work that's being done using your data. But that may take a little while because of how long it takes for things to be published, et cetera.
Yeah.
The other one is that you have registered users, and I presume that any serious user is going to register. You could, in principle, survey them.
Yeah, and
with email. I mean, you know.
Yeah. So we have some data. Just if they decide to get notified because of the export, and right now we know that we have 80,000 different data exports from the lens.org itself. Okay, in terms of because of on the site itself, if you use PetSite, you know, if you use any tool and download the data, you don't get notified. You can download directly. So it means we cannot track. Okay. So we have not made available, or at least tracking at different sections of the site, how you could track the downloads. Okay. The only thing as well, we can survey, and we have a survey available for users, and we can share. Maybe we have shared before, but I'm happy to share what the users thought of functionality they want, or things that they.
Well, I was thinking of surveying the users to find out which data they found most useful, that sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly. And we have that, and I'm happy. I didn't have the slide, but I'm happy to share that.
It's fine.
Because we got maybe 300 people responded to that, and we can share that information.
You know, I have to say that, I mean, we felt that, you know, Hall, Jaffe, Trachtenberg felt that, you know, we made a mistake in the sense of not having people register. And so we had really very poor data on who was using it until we collect the citations. And also I had a long list of people who'd sent queries to me. So I sort of knew, you know, there were a lot of graduate students and so forth. And in some ways, I mean, I might almost, you know, recommend that you have a primitive registration form that at least gets you an email. You know, just so when people want to download, you know, just so you have some idea. You know,
I think more and more, I think we will have to track a little bit usage in a more systematic way. Just because as well our funders want us to be sustainable.
Exactly.
And
that's why I'm concerned about it.
Exactly.
It's because essentially you want to demonstrate utility.
Yeah, so definitely that's on, and we know that you know, the lens has been for 20 years, so the people are using it, and it has been operational for 20 years, day and night, so it has not been turned off. So have
you checked for citations?
I tried. The only thing is we don't have consistency. So I can look for the lens and I get 1,000, but it's not the lens. We have to do lens.org. We have to.
Okay, so that's the other thing. The other thing is you have to supply the precise citation.
Exactly.
In your slide where it says attribution, you got to supply something more than enabled by the lens.
Okay.
You got to give the whole thing, the website, blah, blah, blah. And that's the other thing, that people find it easy to cite, they will cite it.
Yeah.
Just copy and paste.
Yeah, so I think that's definitely, we are trying to work out into a more harmonious ways to cite that, so that we can track it. Which is the period of the data. The data itself, as I said, you get some of the data for the patent. You have 1976 for the US data, and I think it tracked down to 1800 in terms of the scholarly work. I can get you that information on the lens itself. You can just go to the structure page, structure search page, and you can access the dates in more, I think, accurate ways. It's great. You decide not to track users. Yeah, the download, you keep track of the who downloads what. Yeah, so the only thing we can track is if they get notified. And for the API calls, because we manage the volume and the access, we have so far 477,000 API calls and 123 million records downloaded. For the data downloads, we have 80,000 data downloads only if for those who have registered to be notified in terms of export. Is there a plan to include broader range of MPL references to GitHub? Yes, I thought we wanted Sam to help us with the Wikidata stuff, the prior art to include with the MPLs. MPL data is...
I think this question was, Agnes is saying, will things like GitHub repositories or Wikipedia articles be entities that have their own lens IDs as the target of a citation?
I think so. I think right now we serve both the resolved and unresolved, but we serve them as citation strings, but that's a good idea to have. I should check. I don't know if the guys also give references to GitHub repository or Wikipedia articles. They give them a lens ID. I should check that. I don't know.
You know, it would be a cool thing to do.
Yeah. Good, thank you for that question.
Excuse me.
Yes.
This is Arash speaking. I have a question about the API use and the name disambiguation. I noticed you mentioned it somewhere in your presentation.
Yeah.
One of the use cases we have normally is that we have lots of different databases and we want to merge them, and Lens is offering very nice scholarly and patently linked data. So my question is, like, when we are bringing some data, let's say from Web of Science, and we have company names, do you have like a disambiguation kind of a method there so we can match them over company names or organization's name? Because I noticed Sam also mentioned this wiki data because they also generate these URIs.
Yeah.
So you can have this problem solved. Happy to hear about that more.
All right, thank you, Arish, so much. Which institution you're from?
I'm from Technical Research Institute of Finland.
All right, fantastic.
Yeah, VTT. Yeah.
Yes, wonderful.
Some of my colleagues use that Lens. I heard about it, so I kind of followed up this.
Wonderful. It's wonderful to have you here, and we appreciate your attending this workshop. So, Arish, what we have is that because we are a public resource, we're very cognizant of not including, for example, commercial data set like Web of Science, because we want to make that information later available as well publicly. So we don't use Web of Science in this. But what we do is that we use the DocDB standardized applicant name, and sometimes they have the applicant name of a companies that are standardized and harmonized. And so that we may be able, it's a work in progress, it's not complete, but if you are working on disambiguation and you have a target where you want to make your data sets and training data sets available publicly without the encumbrance of a Web of Science or any commercial provider, you are welcome to come to the lens.org and request the API so we can give you access to anything you need to perfect your work, okay? And hopefully that you make it available to the community. So from that perspective, whatever we have, and if we have standardized names, if we have things, we provide through the API, then we give you that access to, so that you could improve on your data set. Does it answer your question?
Yeah, thank you. Good to know that the option is available.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay.
And Mike, does that answer your question about internal tools?
Mike, it's wonderful. Mike is from Research Rabbit, and also he uses the Lens API. So I'm very pleased to see people attending like this. So yes, Mike, we just started. We have ingested the ORCID IDs and MAG IDs into the Lens, and we just started onto the human disambiguation process. Okay, and so we hope that if we are able to secure more resources, that this work will accelerate. We have plans for improving on the author affiliation through the grid identifiers. We have made a few areas where improve the quality, but still, I think we need to do quite a bit on that aspects, because we know that with the grid identifier, there are right now more than 80,000 organizations with grid identifiers. And so we would be able to improve quite a bit on the work that MAG has done. And hopefully, it is important to mention as well that we work closely with these different public data resources. For example, with MAG, we give back and forth feedback with using training data sets or other, especially early on the entity resolution of the author affiliation. At the same time as well, for example, if we find things that are not working properly with DocDB, we give feedback and we get response. Our collaboration is just fantastic, because as a user of the public resource, whenever we see anything misaligned, or they help us, even with IMPADOC or with the patent offices, I'm very grateful to the EPO as well as USPTO. They've been fantastic in responding to us, and we exchange sometimes some information regarding the data and how we improve. For example, EPO, we requested that all the patent sequences, which are not discussed here, but we asked that there were issues between the public resource that's available in ABI and the EPO data, and EPO went and worked on it and made the data available to the public and shared it even with us. So we are very grateful for that interaction between the patent office and the public resources. Any other question?
Well, that was very well timed.
Excellent. Wonderful.
If people have other questions afterwards, you can drop them into the notes. There will be one more session. I think, Osmat, you will be there for it?
Yes. I'll
for the Eastern Hemisphere?
Yes.
So you can leave unanswered questions there, and the next group will see them.
It is important to mention, thank you, Sam, so much, is that there will be another session for the Asian group at 6 p.m. My time, but it will be 10 a.m. in the morning. And then if you have any other questions, or please let everybody know, especially in Asia, we would like to move the I3 workshops to become more accessible as well and available to the community there. Okay, thank you.